She dialed 911 the moment I packed my first box. "He's abandoning the rules!" she shrieked into her phone, her voice shrill enough to shatter glass 3 houses down. Seconds later, 5 police cruisers stormed my driveway like I was some dangerous criminal. Officers spread out across my lawn, hands gripping their weapons, just because I dared to move out of my own house. 5 armed cops for packing dishes in a house I own. I'm standing there holding a box of kitchen plates, watching Darlene Pritchard, HOA president and neighborhood tyrant, gesturing wildly from her perfectly manicured lawn, her oversized sunglasses gleaming in the morning sun. The diesel smell from my U-Haul, mixed with her aggressive perfume, some unholy combination of artificial flowers and pure entitlement. What she didn't know? I'd just closed on every single property on her precious block. And in about 20 minutes, when those officers figured out she'd wasted their time, she was going to learn she wasn't the queen anymore. She was about to become my tenant. Ever had an HOA fine you for something insane? What's the most ridiculous violation you've gotten? Drop it below. Watching from HOA hell? Comment your state. Let's see where the worst Karens live. Let me back up. 18 months before those cops showed up in my driveway, I was a completely different person. My name's Roland, early 50s, software project manager, the kind of guy who actually reads instruction manuals and enjoys organizing spreadsheets. Yeah, I know, thrilling. But here's the thing. My wife Sarah died from cancer 2 years ago, and after months of wandering around our empty house in Columbus, every corner reminding me of what I'd lost, I needed out. I needed a fresh start, somewhere quiet, where I could just breathe again. Pinewood Grove looked perfect. 22 homes in a neat little development outside Indianapolis. Mix of colonials and ranches from the late 90s. The kind of place where you picture kids riding bikes, neighbors borrowing lawn mowers, maybe a block party on the 4th of July. I bought a modest 3-bedroom ranch, thinking I'd test out retirement, eventually move my old man Pop out here with me. That first week, the house smelled like fresh paint and new carpet. Hope smelled like Home Depot, turns out. That hope lasted exactly 23 days. Darlene Pritchard knocked on my door on a Tuesday morning, and I knew immediately, something was off. Picture this. Late 50s, velour tracksuit, sunglasses that belonged on a celebrity hiding from paparazzi, and perfume so thick and aggressive it announced her arrival a full 30 seconds before she did. She drove a white Lexus SUV with a vanity plate that read Grovelder, Grove Leader. Real subtle, right? "Welcome to Pinewood Grove." She shoved this massive binder into my hands. "I'm Darlene, HOA president. This is your welcome packet." 47 pages. I counted later. Grass height had to be exactly 2.5 to 3 inches. Mailbox colors? Approved list of 8 beige variations. 8 different shades of beige. Visitor parking couldn't exceed 4 hours without written permission. Holiday decorations were only allowed November 25th through January 5th. And garbage cans? They had to be completely invisible from the street except on collection day between 6 and 8 a.m. "We take community standards very seriously here," Darlene said with this smile that never touched her eyes. "I do weekly inspections, just to keep everyone compliant." The way she said that word, compliant, made my skin crawl. I should have seen it coming. But I was still in that grief fog where you just nod and go along because fighting takes energy you don't have anymore. 2 months later, I woke up to this sound, thwack, paper hitting my front door at dawn. First violation notice. Darlene had actually measured my lawn with a ruler, 3.2 inches. She included photographic evidence with a timestamp and everything, like she was documenting a crime scene. Fine, $150. I paid it, figured it was just a weird one-time thing. Month 4, my father came to visit for a week. Pop's 76, Vietnam vet, drives this small camper because hotels kill his back. He parked it in my driveway, and within 2 hours, there's another notice taped to my door. Recreational vehicles banned per section 12.4C. Fine, $500. Failure to comply within 24 hours will result in property lien. $500 for my father's camper in my own driveway. That evening, Pop found me staring at the notice on my back deck. The sun was setting, and you know what I noticed? Silence. No kids playing. No neighbors chatting over fences. Just the hum of air conditioning units and nothing else. Pop cracked open a beer, took a long sip, and said, "Son, I didn't fight for freedom so some clipboard Nazi could tell me where to park." And right there, something in me shifted. All that grief I'd been carrying for 2 years, it crystallized into something different, something focused, determination, anger, purpose. I started digging. Turns out Darlene had issued over 200 violations in 18 months. Every single homeowner had been hit at least twice. The Chen family 3 doors down, forced to repaint their entire house. Twice. Because Darlene decided their beige was off-tone. Everyone was too terrified to fight back. That night, sitting across from Pop, I made a decision. If the system's broken, sometimes you have to buy the system. I just needed to figure out how. Month 5, things got personal. I had this ceramic turtle by my mailbox. Small thing, maybe 6 inches tall, hand-painted. Sarah bought it for our 20th anniversary because I joked that I moved through life at turtle speed. Slow, steady, always getting there eventually. After she died, that stupid turtle became one of the few things I couldn't pack away. I came home from grocery shopping on a Saturday, and there it was. Another notice. Unapproved lawn ornament violates aesthetic cohesion standards, Section 7.3b. Fine, $300. Remove within 72 hours or face additional penalties. $300 for a turtle the size of my hand. I sat in my car for 20 minutes just staring at that notice. My hands were shaking. This wasn't about rules anymore. This was about control, about someone who got off on making people miserable. That's when I decided to fight back. First HOA board meeting I attended was held in Darlene's living room. Yeah, you heard that right. Not a community center, not a public building, her house. I walked in and immediately knew this was rigged. Folding chairs arranged in rows like we were in detention. Stale coffee and a percolator that looked older than me. Her husband Vernon sat at a card table taking minutes on a legal pad with a pen that kept skipping. 6 homeowners showed up, out of 22. Darlene sat at the head like a judge at the bench, that aggressive perfume filling the room until I could taste it. I raised my hand during new business. I'd like to discuss fine proportionality. She looked at me like I'd just tracked mud on her carpet. Excuse me? I pulled out printed copies of state HOA law. I'd done my homework. State Statute 32-25-3 requires fines to be proportional to violations. $300 for a 4-inch decoration? That's not proportional, that's punitive. I'm also requesting a full financial audit. Where do all these fines actually go? The room went dead silent. You could hear Vernon's pen scratching on paper. Darlene laughed. Actually laughed. We don't answer to renters. She spat that word like it was poison. I own my home, I said calmly. Then you should know better than to question this board's authority. The meeting ended 10 minutes later. As I was leaving, Vernon caught me at the door. He glanced back at Darlene, then leaned in close. His breath smelled like coffee and fear. Drop it, he whispered. She'll make your life hell. We've seen it happen. I drove home thinking about that. We've seen it. How many people had tried to fight before me? How many had been crushed? Next morning, I filed a Freedom of Information request with the county. Here's a knowledge nugget for you. In most states, HOAs are considered semi-public entities, which means their financial records are subject to FOIA requests. Takes about 2 weeks, costs maybe $20 in processing fees. Takeaway: your HOA's financial records are public. You have every right to see where your money goes. The records arrived in a manila envelope that felt like it weighed 10 pounds, $47,000 in fines collected last year. Only $8,000 spent on community improvements, which apparently meant replacing Darlene's mailbox and repaving the street in front of her house. The rest? Categorized as administrative costs. Translation: Darlene's personal slush fund. I spent the next week knocking on doors. HOA bylaws required 15% of homeowners to petition for a special meeting. That's 4 signatures, including mine. Most people wouldn't even open their doors. I'd see curtains move, hear footsteps, then nothing. Third house I tried, an elderly woman named Gladys cracked her door open, chain lock still attached. She was maybe 80, with white hair and hands that trembled when she gripped the door frame. I'd sign, she whispered, glancing over her shoulder like Darlene might materialize behind her. But she'll fine me for my bird feeder. I'm on a fixed income. I can't afford it. Her bird feeder was one of those simple wooden ones. Maybe cost $15 at Walmart. "What if I covered your next fine?" I asked. Her eyes went wide. "You'd do that?" "Yeah, I would," she signed. Word spread quietly after that. People started leaving their porch lights on when I knocked, secret signal that they'd talk. I got my signatures, filed the petition. Darlene's response came via her HOA lawyer. Cease and desist letter claiming the signatures were forged. They weren't. The lawyer's letterhead had a typo. Attorney at law. That should have told me everything about how cheap Darlene was cutting corners. But here's what she didn't know. While she was busy trying to shut me down, I was meeting with a real attorney. Sharp woman in her 60s named Phyllis, office that smelled like old law books and burned coffee. Phyllis looked at my documents, looked at me, and smiled. "HOAs are just corporations," she said. "And corporations can be bought. You own 51% of the properties, you control the board." The printer in her office hummed as she printed out county property records. I spent that night at my kitchen table at 2 a.m. building a spreadsheet by the glow of my laptop. 22 properties. 8 were rentals owned by scattered investors. 3 were in pre-foreclosure, holdovers from the Great Recession. That's when the plan formed. I made my first call the next morning. Absentee landlord in Texas who owned a duplex. 2 votes. Offered him $240, $10,000 over market. He accepted in 4 hours. Darlene had no idea I just bought my first piece of her kingdom. Month 7, Darlene noticed. Small community. Word travels fast. Someone saw the county deed transfer. Someone else saw moving trucks at the duplex. By the time the gossip reached Darlene, she'd already convinced herself I was just another landlord trying to make a quick buck flipping properties. She had no idea what was actually coming. 3 days after my duplex purchase closed, there's an emergency board meeting notice in everyone's mailbox. I didn't go. Sent my tenant instead, guy named Marcus, early 30s, paralegal at a downtown firm, sharp as a tack and with a personal hatred of bullies that made him perfect for this. Marcus texted me updates in real time. The meeting lasted 12 minutes. Darlene rammed through a new rule. Owner occupancy priority designation. Sounds official, right? Here's what it actually meant. Any rental property now faced triple fines and a mandatory $1,200 quarterly absentee owner fee. She was trying to make my investment unprofitable, force me to sell. I smiled when I read Marcus's text. She'd just shown me her playbook, panic and overreach. I didn't fight the new rule, didn't even acknowledge it, just went quiet, moved Pop into one side of the duplex, made it owner-occupied, rented the other side to Marcus himself, who volunteered. Now I had someone at every board meeting, taking notes, watching every move she made. 2 weeks later, Marcus sent me something interesting. "Dude," his text read, "she's backdating meeting minutes. Vernon's literally changing dates on documents to make it look like rules were voted on properly. They weren't." Here's another knowledge nugget. Fraudulent HOA minutes aren't just unethical, they're illegal. Every rule change has to follow proper procedure: notice, quorum, vote, documentation. Skip any step? That rule is void. Fake the documentation? That's fraud, and board members can be held personally liable. Takeaway: always request copies of meeting minutes. If dates don't match up or procedures were skipped, those rules can't be enforced. I filed that information away, ammunition for later. Meanwhile, I kept buying. Property number 2, foreclosed ranch, previous owner died, estate desperate to close, 3 votes. Paid $195, which was probably 20 grand under market, but the executor just wanted it gone. Used an LLC to make the purchase, different name untraceable to me on public records. Property number 3, another ranch, 2 votes, different LLC. Property number 4, colonial, 3 votes. Divorcing couple, messy split, needed cash fast. I offered $15,000 over asking with a 14-day close. They practically threw the keys at me. Now I controlled 10 of 22 votes, 45%. So close, I could taste it. Darlene knew something was happening. She just couldn't figure out what. Multiple LLCs buying properties, but the names went through registered agent services. Dead ends everywhere she looked. I heard through Marcus she'd even hired a private investigator, her cousin's boyfriend, unlicensed. The guy traced the LLCs to a P.O. box in Delaware and apparently gave up. That's when she made her biggest mistake. Another emergency meeting. This time she proposed a right of first refusal amendment. HOA had to be offered any property before it went to public sale. Obvious attempt to block the mysterious investor she couldn't identify. Problem was, You can't make rules retroactive. My attorney Phyllis confirmed it. The 3 properties I had in escrow? Already under contract. Her new rule meant nothing. But here's what her paranoia did accomplish. She convinced the board to sell off HOA assets. The playground equipment, the gazebo, the little common areas that actually made the neighborhood decent. Wanted to raise capital for a lawsuit against the corporate invader she imagined was coming for her. The board rubber-stamped it like they always did. Vernon didn't even look up from his legal pad. I almost laughed when Marcus told me. She was literally dismantling the HOA to save it, making my eventual takeover easier. One evening, I drove to Sarah's grave. Small cemetery on the edge of town, quiet except for the wind moving through the oak trees. I sat on the bench by her headstone, holding a ceramic turtle I'd bought to replace the one Darlene made me remove. "You always said I overthink everything," I said to the stone. "But this time thinking's gonna save people." I left the turtle on her grave. Back home, I pulled up my spreadsheet. 10 votes out of 22. I needed 12 to hit 51%. Just 2 more properties. The question was, which ones? I studied the list. The Chens had been punished more than anyone, forced to repaint twice, fined constantly for invisible violations, and I'd heard through the neighborhood whisper network they were looking at houses in Maplewood, the next town over. Then there was Gladys, the elderly woman with the bird feeder. She'd mentioned once, quietly, that she couldn't keep up with the fines much longer, that she might have to sell. 2 targets, 2 opportunities. I made a note in my spreadsheet and started drafting offers. Darlene was so focused on finding the investor that she never considered the investor was already inside her walls, 1 property away from checkmate. Month 10, Darlene called another emergency meeting. This time it wasn't just paranoia, it was full-blown panic. Marcus texted me the agenda an hour before. Special assessment proposal. You're gonna want to see this. I stayed home. Let Marcus be my eyes and ears. Less suspicious that way. The meeting was packed. 18 homeowners showed up, which was unheard of. People were scared. You could feel it in Marcus's texts, the way he described the room. That chemical smell of fear mixed with Darlene's perfume, everyone sitting rigid in their folding chairs. Darlene stood at the front, hands gripping the podium like she was addressing the United Nations. "We face an existential threat," she announced. No greeting, no minutes from last meeting, just straight into fear-mongering. "Outside corporate forces are attempting to destroy our community. To protect Pinewood Grove, I'm proposing a special assessment of $5,000 per homeowner. This will fund our legal defense. $5,000 per house. To fight a lawsuit that didn't exist yet against an investor she couldn't even identify." Marcus said the room went dead silent for about 10 seconds. Then a young couple stood up. The Torrances, both elementary school teachers, 2 little kids. I'd seen them around, always looked exhausted, always friendly. Mr. Torrance's voice shook when he spoke. "We can't afford $5,000. We have student loans, 2 kids. We're barely making mortgage as it is." Darlene's response was ice cold. "Then perhaps Pinewood Grove isn't the right fit for your family." Marcus said you could have heard a pin drop. She'd just threatened to price out a family with kids. Said it out loud, in front of witnesses. Mrs. Torrance grabbed her husband's hand, and they walked out. That's when Marcus stood up. In his paralegal voice, calm, professional, the kind that makes you realize you're about to get legally demolished, he cited state statute. Special assessments over $2,500 require a 67% homeowner vote, not a board decree. What you're proposing is illegal. Darlene waved him off like he was a mosquito. The board has discretionary authority in emergencies. "Show me where in the bylaws," Marcus said. She couldn't, because it wasn't there. The meeting fell apart after that. People started arguing, demanding votes, questioning where previous fines had gone. Darlene adjourned early, practically ran out to her Lexus. But the damage was done. Homeowners were talking now, comparing notes, realizing they'd all been bled dry. 2 days later, Gladys called me. Her voice was so quiet I could barely hear her. "Roland, I need to sell. I can't do this anymore." She'd racked up $1,100 in fines over 6 months. Bird feeder violations, lawn height, unauthorized decorative seasonal flag. She'd hung a small American flag on the 4th of July, and Darlene fined her because it wasn't the approved size. Gladys was 83 years old, fixed income. Those fines might as well have been $10,000. I drove to her house that afternoon. She made tea, the kind that smells like bergamot and feels like somebody's grandmother hugging you. We sat in her kitchen with the afternoon light coming through yellow curtains. "I've lived here 19 years, she said, hands wrapped around her teacup. "Never thought I'd be driven out of my own home." I made her an offer right there. Asking price, plus I'd cover all her moving costs. She cried, actually cried, said yes through tears. Property number 5, 2 votes. I was at 47% now. So close I could feel it. But Darlene found out. Of course she did. Someone told her Gladys sold to an investor, and she lost whatever was left of her mind. She actually drove to Gladys's new apartment, a nice little senior community in Fishers, and confronted her in the parking lot. Broad daylight, Gladys's daughter was visiting, heard the screaming from inside, came out with her phone already recording. The video was only 90 seconds, but it was brutal. Darlene shouting, calling Gladys a traitor, saying she'd ruined the neighborhood, that she was enabling corporate destruction of American values. Gladys just stood there, this tiny elderly woman, while Darlene towered over her screaming. Her daughter posted it to the Pinewood Grove Facebook group, then the local community pages. Then it went viral, 20,000 views in 2 days. Comments flooded in from people sharing their own HOA horror stories. Someone recognized Darlene from her real estate days, dug up her old license suspension for ethics violations. The internet was doing my job for me. Meanwhile, I had my eye on the final piece. The Chens were actively house hunting. I'd seen them at open houses in Maplewood. They were done, finished, ready to escape. I approached Mr. Chen at a neighborhood 4th of July thing, just a few people grilling in someone's backyard, careful and quiet, like even celebrating felt dangerous under Darlene's watch. "I heard you're looking in Maplewood," I said quietly. He nodded. "We can't take another year of this. She made us repaint our house twice. Twice. Cost us $8,000. "What if I bought your house? $15,000 over appraisal. I'll cover your closing costs on the new place." He stared at me. "Why would you overpay?" I pulled out my phone, showed him the spreadsheet, 12 properties highlighted. His address blinking, waiting to be added. His eyes went wide. You're taking her down." "Yeah," I said. "I am, but I need your house to do it." He looked at his wife across the yard, then back at me. "We want to watch," he said. "When it happens. We want front row seats." Deal. We shook on it. The sale closed 3 weeks later. Property number 6, 3 votes, 53%, 12 out of 22 votes. I had control. I scheduled a board election per the bylaws. 30 days notice, can't be blocked, democratic process. Darlene still thought the LLCs were separate investors. She had no idea they were all me. No idea that in 30 days, she'd be standing in front of a room full of people learning exactly who'd beaten her. The countdown had started. 3 days after the Chen sale closed, Mr. Chen called me. "Can you come over? I have something you need to see." I drove over that evening. He met me at the door with a manila folder, the kind that's been stuffed so full the edges are splitting. His hands were shaking slightly as he handed it to me. When Darlene made me temporary board secretary back in 2019, just for 2 months while Vernon had surgery, I had access to everything. Files, emails, bank accounts. And I'm an accountant, Roland. Numbers talk to me. These numbers were screaming. I opened the folder. Holy hell. First document, bank statements showing transfers from the HOA operating account to a business account labeled Grove Management LLC. $31,000 over 3 years, categorized as consulting fees. I looked up at Chen. "Let me guess, Grove Management is Darlene's shell company, filed with the state under her maiden name. It's her, just her." Textbook embezzlement. Second document, email chain between Darlene and her brother-in-law's construction company. Quotes for HOA repairs, new mailboxes, fence work, pressure washing. Every quote was inflated by 30 to 40% compared to market rate. And at the bottom of one email, in black and white, 20% finder's fee per usual. Kickbacks. Documented kickbacks. Third document. This one made my blood run cold. Lien paperwork on a homeowner's property. Guy named Patterson lived on the north end. Owed fines, according to Darlene. She'd placed a lien that prevented him from refinancing his mortgage. He'd lost out on a refi that would have saved him $40,000 over the life of the loan. Chen handed me another paper. Patterson's bank records. I got them from him after he moved out. He paid those fines, paid them in full. She placed the lien anyway. Fraud. Criminal fraud. I sat at Chen's kitchen table for an hour, going through every page, while he made coffee that we both forgot to drink. The afternoon light faded to evening. My hands were steady, but my mind was racing. "Why didn't you use this before?" I asked. Chen looked down. I was scared. She destroyed families, Roland. The Johnsons, the Patels, that young couple with the baby, all gone because they fought back. I kept these as insurance, but I never had the courage to pull the trigger. Then you showed up. I called Phyllis, my attorney, right from Chen's kitchen. She drove over, reviewed everything under Chen's dining room lamp. "This is felony embezzlement," she said, pen tapping against her notepad. "Civil fraud, and HOA board members have fiduciary duty, same legal standard as corporate executives. She breached it. She's personally liable. So is Vernon for signing off on these transfers." Knowledge nugget. HOA board members aren't just volunteers. They have legal fiduciary duty. Breach it, and you're personally on the hook for damages, both civil and criminal. I had everything now. Voting majority, criminal evidence, community support from that viral video, the whole package. Phyllis looked at me. "You could turn this over to the DA tomorrow. End this fast." "No," I said. The election's in 27 days. I want her in that room. I want everyone to see exactly who she is. Then we press charges." Chen smiled for the first time in probably months. "Maximum humiliation. Maximum accountability," I corrected. "But yeah, also humiliation." That night, Darlene made her fatal mistake. She filed a lawsuit, actual lawsuit against unknown investors, for conspiracy to undermine HOA integrity. Hired an expensive lawyer, burned through $18,000 of HOA reserves just for the retainer. Then she sent threatening letters to every homeowner. Anyone found collaborating with hostile investors will face maximum enforcement of all community standards. The letters landed in mailboxes the next morning. By noon, a secret Facebook group had formed, Pinewood Grove Truth. 14 of 22 homeowners joined in the first 2 hours. Marcus became moderator, kept my identity secret. People started sharing everything, photos of violation notices, screenshots of fine amounts, stories of Darlene's cruelest moments. One woman posted a picture of her daughter's chalk drawing on their driveway, the one that earned them a $400 fine. The group became a digital war room, and Darlene had no idea it existed. 27 days until the election, 27 days until everything came out. I could smell it in the air, not her perfume this time, but something else. Fear. Her fear, and it smelled like victory. My dining room became mission control. I'm talking papers everywhere, laptops open, printer running hot enough to smell like burning plastic. Pop started calling it the war room, and honestly, that's exactly what it was. The team assembled over the next week. Core group, me, Phyllis the attorney, Marcus the paralegal, Chen the accountant, and Gladys, who insisted on helping despite being in her 80s. "I want my bird feeder back," she said, "and I want to watch that woman pay." New recruits came quick. The Torrances, those young teachers Darlene threatened, offered to handle social media documentation. Bernard, this retired postal worker in his late 60s who knew every single homeowner's story by heart, and a local reporter named Kate from the county newspaper who'd been following the Facebook group and smelled blood in the water. "This is my Watergate," Kate said when she showed up at my door. "Small-town corruption exposed. I want the exclusive." We mapped out the strategy on a whiteboard I'd bought from Staples. Prong 1, legal takeover. Chen drew the ownership structure in blue marker. 12 properties, 53% control. But here's the thing. I could vote on behalf of my rental tenants using proxy votes. They just had to sign over voting authority to me as landlord. Another knowledge nugget. Most HOAs allow proxy voting. If you own rental properties, your tenants can authorize you to vote on their behalf. Stack enough proxies, and you can control elections even without owning a majority. With proxies, I had effective control of 14 votes, 64%. I could nominate anyone I wanted for the board. Darlene couldn't stop it. Prong 2, criminal evidence. Phyllis organized Chen's documents into prosecutor-ready format. She'd done white-collar crime cases before, knew exactly how DAs thought. We've got 17 homeowners with documented damages from fraudulent fines, she said, highlighter squeaking across papers. That's a pattern of behavior. You know what that means? RICO statutes, racketeering. This isn't just fraud, it's organized fraud. Total damages, $127,000. Enough to destroy Darlene financially, even if she avoided prison. Prong 3. Public relations. Kate wanted the story to drop the morning of the election. Maximum impact. She spent a week interviewing victims. People finally felt safe talking with a reporter involved. Bernard arranged interviews. Gladys made cookies for people too nervous to talk without something to hold on to. Small touches, but they mattered. Kate drafted the headline, HOA President's 31K Secret, Embezzlement in Pinewood Grove. She showed me the article 3 days before publication. It was devastating. Quotes from 8 homeowners, photos of the bank transfers, sidebar about Darlene's old real estate license suspension. This goes live at 6 a.m. on Election Day, Kate said. She'll wake up famous, for all the wrong reasons. Prong 4. Community healing. This was the part that mattered most to me. Late one night, just me and Pop at the kitchen table with beers going warm, I laid out my vision. After we take the board, we dissolve the HOA entirely. Requires 75% vote, but I think we can get it. Refund every illegitimate fine. Convert the common areas to public parks. Deed them to the city so everyone benefits, not just us. And the money we recover? Embezzlement restitution, settlement from the lawsuit? We start a community fund, scholarship for local kids. Pop was quiet for a minute, then, what would you call it? Sarah's Second Chances Scholarship. He nodded. Didn't say anything else. Didn't need to. The next 3 weeks were a blur. Marcus filed FOIA requests for 5 years of HOA records. The county delivered 4 bankers' boxes. We went through everything, every receipt, every meeting minute, every violation notice. Built a timeline of Darlene's entire reign. Bernard interviewed every homeowner, filled 17 notebooks with stories. Most people cried. Some got angry. All of them said the same thing. I thought I was the only one. Phyllis drafted legal briefs and taught me parliamentary procedure, Robert's Rules of Order, how to chair a meeting, how to shut down disruptions legally. We did practice runs in my living room with Pop playing Darlene, interrupting and objecting to everything. It was hilarious and depressing at the same time. You'll chair the meeting, Phyllis said. Know these rules cold. She'll try to hijack the process. Don't let her. The Torrances created an infographic for the Facebook group, pie chart showing where fine money went, 68% into Darlene's pocket, timeline of violation spikes, quote wall with Darlene's cruelest statements to homeowners. It went viral, 4,200 shares in 3 days. Darlene's lawyer sent a cease and desist for defamation. Marcus responded with an anti-slap motion threat. If she wanted to sue people for telling the truth, we'd counter-sue for legal fees and win. She backed down within hours. Week before the election, Kate's investigative research hit gold. Darlene's real estate license suspension from 2009. She'd failed to disclose foundation problems in a sale. The buyer sued, she lost. State suspended her license for 18 months. Pattern of unethical behavior going back 15 years. I rented the community center for election night, neutral venue, public space, HOA bylaws required it, set up folding chairs for 50 people, podium with microphone, projector for displaying documents, 2 cameras on tripods for Facebook Live plus backup recording. I even did a tutorial-style video explaining to the Facebook group, most HOA horror stories happen because homeowners don't know the bylaws. Read your CC&Rs, know your rights, attendance is your weapon, show up, vote, that's how you win. Final night before election, we had dinner at my house. Whole team, plus pizza because nobody had energy to cook. We went around the table. Everyone shared why they were fighting. Gladys, tearful, I want my bird feeder back. Chen, I want my daughter to see that bullies lose. Torrance, we teach civics. We tell kids the system works. Tomorrow we prove it. Marcus, I'm tired of watching powerful people crush the weak. Bernard, 19 years I've watched this neighborhood die. Tomorrow it lives again. Phyllis, I'm a lawyer because I believe in justice. Tomorrow we deliver it. Pop looked at me, waited. I thought about Sarah, the turtle, the house that was supposed to be a fresh start. I want to prove that broken systems can be fixed, I said. That one person with a plan can make a difference. and I want to make sure nobody else loses their home to someone like her." The printer hummed in the background, spitting out the last batch of evidence packets. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tonight, we just sat together, eating pizza, feeling something none of us had felt in over a year: hope. 6 a.m., Election Day. Kate's article went live. My phone buzzed with the news alert. I was already awake, hadn't really slept if I'm honest, sitting at my kitchen table with coffee going cold in my cup. I clicked the link. There it was. Front page of the digital edition, above the fold in print. Pinewood Grove HOA president accused of $31K embezzlement. Subheadline: Documents reveal years of fraudulent fines, kickback schemes. Kate had included everything. Interviews with 8 homeowners, photos of bank transfers, copies of fake invoices, Darlene's old license suspension. There was even a sidebar: How to Audit Your HOA, a homeowner's guide. It was beautiful. Devastating. Perfect. My phone buzzed again. Marcus. It's live. She's gonna lose her mind. I'd bet money Darlene's phone was blowing up right about now. I was right. According to the neighborhood gossip chain that lit up within the hour, Darlene's neighbor had texted her the article link at 5:47 a.m. She'd called Vernon screaming so loud the neighbor heard it through the walls. "This is defamation! Sue them! Sue the paper! Sue everyone!" Vernon, for the first time in 8 years, apparently grew a spine. "Dar, if this is true, I could go to jail. I signed those checks. My name's on those documents." First crack in the armor. By noon, the article had been shared over 800 times. Local TV news picked it up, sent a crew to the neighborhood. I watched from my window as a news van parked on the corner and a reporter started doing man-on-the-street interviews. Bernard walked right up to them. God bless that man. "She fined a widow $400 because her gutter was dented," he told the camera. That gutter was dented when she bought the house. Darlene knew it. Fined her anyway. The Torrances came out next, Mrs. Torrance holding their youngest. $600 because our kids drew on our driveway with chalk, washable chalk. It rained that night. She still made us pay. Homeowners who'd been hiding for months suddenly emerged, blinking in sunlight like prisoners released from cells. People stood on sidewalks talking to each other for the first time in years, comparing stories, realizing they'd all been victims of the same crime. Darlene tried to do damage control. At 5 p.m., 2 hours before the election meeting, she sent an email blast to all homeowners. Meeting postponed due to legal review of defamatory claims. Phyllis responded within 5 minutes with her own email blast. Per HOA Bylaws Section 4.2, Board cannot cancel an election once formally called. Tonight's meeting proceeds as scheduled. Any attempt to cancel is void. Darlene's email actually helped us. More people forwarded Phyllis's response than Darlene's original message. Everyone now knew. Election tonight, 7 p.m., Community Center. It was going to be packed. At 5:30, I drove to the Community Center to set up. I was carrying boxes of evidence when I saw her. Darlene's white Lexus, parked in the fire lane like rules didn't apply to her. She was inside the building arguing with the Community Center manager. "This room is double booked," she was saying, voice sharp and high. "There's been a mistake." I walked up behind her, set my box down with a heavy thunk. "No mistake, I rented it. Here's the contract." I pulled the rental agreement from my folder, showed it to the manager. The manager looked at it, looked at Darlene, shrugged. "He's paid through 9 p.m., ma'am. It's his room." Darlene turned to face me. Up close, I could see cracks in the foundation. Her makeup was heavier than usual, like she was trying to paint over exhaustion. Her perfume was so strong my eyes almost watered, covering the smell of stress, sweat, and fear. "You," she hissed. "Me," I said calmly. "See you at 7. I walked past her into the room and started setting up. She followed me out to the parking lot 10 minutes later, phone pressed to her ear. I was loading more boxes when a county commissioner's car pulled up. Big guy, late 50s, American flag pin on his lapel. Harvey Morrison, political hack who'd been on the county board for 20 years. "I'm here to ensure fair proceedings," Harvey announced, all puffed up and official. Marcus, who'd just arrived, stopped dead. "Commissioner Morrison, isn't your brother the owner of Morrison Construction?" Harvey's face went red. "I don't see how that's relevant." Morrison Construction, the company that's received over $40,000 in contracts from this HOA. The same company documented in today's news article as being part of a kickback scheme. You could see Harvey's brain working, trying to figure out how a random paralegal knew his brother's business. "I'm here in my official capacity." You're here in a conflict of interest, Marcus said flatly. There are TV cameras over there. Want to explain your presence to them? Harvey actually glanced at the news van parked on the street, muttered something about reviewing his calendar, got back in his car, and left. Darlene watched him drive away. The look on her face, that was the moment she realized she was alone. By 6:30, cars were lining the street. I counted through the window. 38 people filing into the community center. Record turnout. Everyone wanted to watch. Darlene sat up at the head table with Vernon and the two other rubber stamp board members. Vernon wouldn't look at her, just stared at the table, pen in hand, looking like he wished he could dissolve into the floor. I sat in the back row, anonymous, quiet. Darlene banged her gavel. She'd actually brought a gavel like this was a real courtroom, and called the meeting to order. Before we begin, she announced, voice shaking slightly, we must address the defamatory article published this morning. I move that we vote to hire a crisis PR firm at a cost of $25,000 to combat these malicious lies. Someone in the audience groaned. We don't have $25, let alone $25,000. Darlene ignored them. All in favor, I stood up. Point of order. She looked at me like I'd just slapped her. You're not on the board. Sit down. Bylaws Section 4.5, I said calmly, pulling out my copy. Any homeowner may raise procedural questions during meetings, and Section 4.8 states that when elections are on the agenda, they must be the first item addressed. No other business can proceed until elections are completed. Phyllis stood up next to me. He's correct. I'm an attorney, Ms. Pritchard, and I can cite the specific case law if you'd like. Proceed to elections or this entire meeting is invalid and subject to legal challenge. Darlene's face went from pink to red to almost purple. This is my meeting, she snapped. Actually, I said, walking toward the front, it's a meeting of the Homeowners Association, which means it belongs to all of us, so let's have that election. The room erupted in applause. Darlene slammed her gavel so hard it cracked. Fine. Nominations for board president. Bernard stood. I nominate Roland. Who seconds? Darlene's voice dripped with contempt. 12 hands shot up. All my tenants plus allies. Darlene stared at the hands. Who are you people? I walked to the podium, connected my laptop to the projector. I'm Roland, I said to the room. Some of you know me, most don't. I moved here 18 months ago looking for peace after my wife died. Instead, I found tyranny. The projector lit up behind me. Chen's ownership map appeared on the screen, 12 properties highlighted in blue, spreading across the neighborhood like pieces on a chessboard. I own 53% of this neighborhood, I said quietly. 12 properties, 12 votes. I control this HOA, and I'm done with the tyranny. The room went dead silent. I heard someone gasp. Someone else whispered, Holy hell. Darlene just stared at the screen, her mouth open, face going pale under all that makeup. Vernon stood up, grabbed his legal pad, and walked out. Just left. Abandoned her completely. The two other board members looked at each other, then quietly started gathering their things. Wait, Darlene said, voice cracking. Wait, this isn't... You can't... But before we vote, I continued, clicking to the next slide, everyone needs to see exactly what's been happening in this HOA. The first bank statement appeared on screen, and Darlene's world started to end. The bank statement glowed on the projector screen, stark white background, black text, numbers that told a story of theft. $31,428, I said, my voice echoing in the silent room. Transferred from the HOA operating account to Grove Management LLC over 3 years. Grove Management is a shell company registered to Darlene Pritchard. It's her. Just her. Paying herself with your money. Click. Next slide. Here's the email chain with Morrison Construction. Notice the quotes. $800 to replace a mailbox that costs $90 at Home Depot. $1,500 to pressure wash a fence that should cost $300. And at the bottom of this email, in writing, 20% finder's fee per usual. That's a kickback. That's fraud. Darlene stood up, her chair scraping loud against the floor. Those are fake! Photoshopped! You fabricated... They're from county records, I said calmly. And the HOA's own files. Everything's been authenticated by a forensic accountant and verified by the county clerk's office. You want copies? They're sitting right here. I gestured to the boxes of documents by my feet. Click. Next slide. This one's my favorite, I said, though favorite wasn't really the right word. Patterson family, remember them? Lived on Oakmont Drive until 2 years ago. Darlene claimed they owed fines, placed a lien on their house. That lien prevented them from refinancing their mortgage. They lost $40,000 in savings over the life of their loan. I pulled out another sheet. Here's Patterson's bank records, showing he paid every fine, in full, before the lien was filed. She placed a fraudulent lien on a family's home. The room erupted, people shouting questions. Someone yelling, "I knew it!" A woman in the third row started crying. I recognized her as Patterson's sister who still lived in the neighborhood. Phyllis stood up, voice cutting through the chaos. "I'm attorney Phyllis Chen. I've provided all of this evidence to the district attorney. A criminal investigation opened this morning. Charges pending include embezzlement, fraud, and racketeering." Darlene's face went completely white. She gripped the edge of the table. She pointed at me, her hand shaking. "You came here to destroy me. You planned this whole thing." "No," I said. "I came here for a fresh start after my wife died. You destroyed yourself. I just documented it." I looked around the room. At Gladys, sitting in the second row with tears streaming down her face. At the Torrances, holding hands. At Bernard, who was nodding slowly. At Marcus, filming everything on his phone for the Facebook group. Every fine you've issued, every rule you've enforced, every threat you've made, it was all about control, about power, about money. You weren't protecting this community, you were bleeding it dry. Darlene looked around the room searching for support, found nothing. The other board members had fled. Vernon was gone. Every face stared back at her with anger or disgust or vindication. Kate, the reporter, stood up from the back row. "Ms. Pritchard, are you aware that Morrison Construction, the company you've been receiving kickbacks from, is currently under FBI investigation for bid rigging in 3 counties? Darlene's knees actually buckled. She caught herself on the table. She hadn't known. I could see it on her face. Her brother-in-law's company wasn't just crooked, it was federally crooked, which meant she wasn't just facing state charges, she was facing federal investigation. "This is a witch hunt," Darlene said, voice cracking. "I'm leaving. I don't have to sit here and—" Bernard stood up, all 6 feet of retired postal worker, arms crossed. "You owe me $1,100 in fraudulent fines. You're not leaving until we vote." Other homeowners stood too, not blocking the door, not touching her, just standing. Witnesses. A wall of people who refused to let her run. The TV cameras caught everything. "Fine," Darlene whispered. "Let's vote. Get this over with." "Motion to proceed with elections," I said formally. "All in favor?" A chorus of "aye" so loud it almost shook the windows. "Elections for HOA president," I continued. "Roland for president. All in favor?" 18 hands went up, out of 22 possible votes. Opposed? 2 hands. Darlene and 1 loyal neighbor who probably didn't understand what was happening. 2 abstentions. Motion passes. I'm the new HOA president. My first official action. Darlene Pritchard is removed from all HOA accounts, effective immediately. Second action, we're hiring an independent auditor. Third action, all expenditures over $100 are frozen pending audit review. Fourth action, all fines issued in the last 18 months are voided pending legitimacy review. I paused, looked directly at her. Fifth action, you're fired, Darlene. Not just from the board. From any involvement with this community. You're done. The room erupted in applause. People standing, clapping, some crying, some hugging. Darlene grabbed her purse, her hands shaking so badly she dropped it twice. She had one last moment of defiance. Stood up straight, tried to put on that imperious expression. "You'll regret this," she said. "I built this community. I made it valuable." "You're all ungrateful." Gladys's voice, sweet and quiet and absolutely devastating, cut her off. "You built a prison, dear. These people are just escaping." The applause got louder. Darlene walked toward the door. Every eye followed her. TV cameras tracked her path. She nearly ran into a chair, stumbled, caught herself. She pushed through the door into the parking lot. The cameras followed her to her white Lexus. She got in, started it, backed up so fast and careless she nearly hit a mailbox. Someone had their phone out. The video of her driving away, flustered and defeated, was on the Facebook group within minutes. It went viral by morning. 2.3 million views in 48 hours. But inside the community center, we weren't thinking about viral videos. The room exhaled, collectively, like everyone had been holding their breath for years and finally could breathe. People swarmed me. Handshakes, hugs, thank yous. Mrs. Torrance was crying. Mr. Chen was grinning so wide I thought his face might split. You saved us, someone said. We saved each other, I told them. I just had resources. You had courage to keep living here. That's harder. Someone banged on the door. Everyone tensed. Was Darlene back? No, county sheriff. Someone had called, probably Darlene, reporting an assault. Who's in charge here? The sheriff asked. 40 people pointed at me. I walked over. I'm Roland, new HOA president. There's been no assault. We held an election. Every second was recorded on multiple cameras. You can review the footage. The sheriff looked around the room, looked at the cameras, looked at me. She called 20 minutes ago claiming she was attacked. She's lying, Bernard said. We have 18 witnesses and video proof. Nobody touched her. The sheriff sighed, the sigh of someone who'd dealt with Darlene before. Yeah, that tracks. Sorry to bother you folks. He left. And whatever remained of Darlene's credibility crumbled to dust. Marcus had been reviewing files on his laptop during all the chaos. Suddenly he stood up. Roland, you need to see this. I walked over. He showed me a deleted email he'd recovered from the HOA laptop. Darlene had left it in the building. Subject line, Gladys foreclosure timeline. Darlene had been planning to foreclose on Gladys's house. 2 weeks away from filing, she would have seized the property, sold it at auction, pocketed the proceeds. I looked over at Gladys, who was laughing with neighbors, genuinely happy for the first time since I'd known her. I'd saved her house without even realizing how close we'd been to disaster. Print that, I told Marcus quietly. It goes to the DA too. The meeting wrapped up around 9. I outlined next steps. Full audit in 2 weeks, town hall to present findings, then a vote on dissolving the HOA entirely. People lingered afterward. Nobody wanted to leave. Pizza appeared. Bernard had ordered it on his phone during the meeting. Someone brought beer from their car. The community center manager said we could stay until 10. It turned into an impromptu celebration. Kids playing in the parking lot for the first time in anyone's memory. Adults talking, laughing, swapping phone numbers, making plans. I stepped outside into the cool night air. Could smell honeysuckle from somewhere nearby. Could hear the buzz of conversation and laughter from inside. Pop walked out, handed me a beer. Your wife would be proud, he said quietly. I looked at the ceramic turtle I'd put on the community center steps. Brought it from home, kind of a mascot now. Yeah, I said. Yeah, she would. Tomorrow would bring consequences. Legal proceedings, paperwork, rebuilding. But tonight? Tonight we just stood there, listening to the sound of a community coming back to life. And it sounded like hope. 2 weeks later, the community center was packed again. 67 people this time. Every homeowner plus media, 3 TV stations now, Kate from the newspaper, even a crew from a true crime podcast. The auditor's report sat on the table like a bomb waiting to detonate. 148 pages. I'd read every single one. The new board sat at the front, me, Chen, Bernard, Mrs. Torrance, 4 people who actually gave a damn about this community. Vernon had resigned via email, gone into hiding. The other rubber stamp members had fled too. Nobody wanted to be associated with what was coming. Darlene showed up. I'll give her credit for that. Most people would have hidden. But she walked in at 6:58, 2 minutes before start time, with a new lawyer. Actual criminal defense attorney this time, suit that cost more than my monthly mortgage. She sat in the back row, arms crossed, defensive, trying to look defiant, but mostly looking scared. The lawyer had clearly told her to stay silent. Smart advice. I called the meeting to order at 7 sharp. Thank you all for coming. We have the independent audit results. They're extensive. I'm going to walk through the findings, and I want to be clear. Every number has been verified by a certified forensic accountant. Copies are available for anyone who wants them. I clicked to the first slide. Total embezzled from HOA accounts, $31,428, confirmed. Click. Kickbacks documented from Morrison Construction and 2 other contractors, $18,200. Click. Fraudulent fines. Fines issued with no legitimate basis or fines issued for violations that never occurred. $53,600, affecting 19 homeowners. Someone in the audience gasped. The number was higher than we'd initially thought. Total theft, $103,228. The room went dead quiet. You could hear the projector fan humming. Additionally, I continued, the auditor discovered that Darlene never obtained required HOA liability insurance. She saved $4,000 a year by skipping it and pocketed the difference. The so-called emergency reserve fund, supposed to contain $20,000, is empty. This HOA is technically insolvent. Chen stood up. The district attorney filed formal charges yesterday. Grand theft, embezzlement, fraud. Potential sentence, 4 to 7 years. Darlene's lawyer leaned over, whispered something urgent to her. She shook her head, jaw clenched. We're also filing a class action civil suit, I said. 19 homeowners seeking damages totaling $250,000 plus attorney fees. I paused, looked around the room. But before we move forward, I want to give people a chance to speak. Anyone affected by Darlene's actions, you have the floor. Gladys stood first. 83 years old, hands trembling slightly, but voice clear. I'm 83, she said. I was 2 weeks from losing my home. I've never stolen anything in my life. I've never even had a speeding ticket. And she called me a community liability. She tried to destroy me for having a bird feeder. She sat down. The Torrances stood next. We're teachers, Mrs. Torrance said. We teach civics. We tell our students that bullies lose, that the system works, that justice prevails. Tonight, we get to prove we weren't lying to them. Bernard was next. 19 years I've lived here. Watch this place go from a neighborhood to a dictatorship. Today it becomes a neighborhood again. 7 more people spoke, each story more heartbreaking than the last. A widow fined for a dented gutter she'd inherited. A veteran fined for flying an American flag the wrong week. A single mom fined for her kid's sidewalk chalk art. By the end, half the room was crying. Darlene couldn't take it anymore. She stood up, shaking off her lawyer's restraining hand. You're all pathetic, she shouted. I made this neighborhood valuable. Property values went up under me. You should be thanking me. Chen stood up calmly. Actually, no. County records show property appreciation 8% below regional average during your tenure. You cost everyone equity. Darlene's face went red. That's because of trash, like... She stopped herself, but not fast enough. We all heard what she was about to say. The racist comment forming, caught halfway out of her mouth. Her lawyer grabbed her arm, physically pulled her back down. But the TV cameras had caught it. The damage was done. That clip would make the evening news. The final nail in her coffin. I let the moment settle, then moved on. Item 2 on the agenda, dissolution of the HOA. This was the big one. I'm proposing we dissolve Pinewood Grove HOA entirely. Requires 75% approval, 17 of 22 properties. Here's what it means. No more fines, no more dues. No more rules about grass height or mailbox colors or when you can hang Christmas lights. Your home becomes truly yours again. Someone asked, what about common areas? The playground, the gazebo? We deed them to the city. They become a public park. City Parks Department maintains them. We still get to use them. Everyone does. But the burden's not on us anymore. I pulled up the final slide. And finally, the Pinewood Community Fund. We'll recover the embezzled money through restitution and the civil settlement. That money, every dollar, goes into a scholarship fund for local kids. We're calling it Sarah's Second Chances Scholarship. My voice caught slightly on my late wife's name. Kids who've overcome adversity, who've shown resilience, who need a chance. $2,500 a year, renewable. First recipient will be announced next month. Gladys was crying openly now. All in favor of dissolving the HOA? 19 hands shot up, out of 22. Only no votes. Darlene, her one loyal neighbor, and one absentee property, 86%. Motion passes. The Pinewood Grove HOA is officially dissolved. The room exploded. Applause, cheers, people hugging. Someone started chanting, "No more HOA," and half the room joined in. I banged the gavel, keeping it as a souvenir, and made one final statement. Effective immediately, there are no rules about grass height, mailbox color, or lawn ornaments. Your home is your home. Darlene, you're not just fired, you're erased. She stood up, grabbed her purse, tried for one last defiant exit line. You'll all regret this. But nobody was listening. The celebration drowned her out. She walked out to her Lexus, surrounded by TV cameras. The video of her leaving, fumbling with her keys, driving away while reporters shouted questions, went viral by morning. Inside, Kate pulled me aside for the exclusive interview. "What's your message to other homeowners trapped in HOA hell?" I thought about it, about Gladys's bird feeder and the Torrance's kids and Sarah's turtle. "Read your bylaws," I said. "Show up to meetings, numbers are power, and if all else fails, buy the board." I smiled. She smiled. The clip became the lead story on every local news channel. By the end of the week, "Man buys entire neighborhood to fire HOA president" was trending nationally. But that night, we didn't care about headlines. Someone had brought more pizza. Someone else had strung up lights in the parking lot. Music started playing from somebody's car stereo. Impromptu block party. First real celebration Pinewood Grove had seen in 8 years. I stepped outside, watched kids running around playing tag while parents laughed and talked. This was what community was supposed to look like. Pop appeared next to me with 2 beers. "Think she'll actually go to jail?" "Yeah," I said. "I do." And honestly, after everything she'd done to these people, to Gladys, to families just trying to live their lives, she deserved every single day. 3 months later, everything had changed. Darlene took a plea deal. 18 months in prison, $103,000 in restitution, 5 years probation. Lifetime ban from serving on any HOA board in the state. They actually passed a law about that, nicknamed it the Darlene Law in the State House. Vernon flipped on her to save himself, testified about the embezzlement scheme. He got probation and a divorce. Last I heard, he moved to Arizona to live with his sister. The civil settlement came through. Every homeowner got refunds for fraudulent fines. I covered the shortfalls out of my own pocket, about $12,000, but honestly, it was worth every penny to see the looks on people's faces when they got those checks. The neighborhood transformed. Lawns became personal again. Some people kept them manicured like golf courses. Others planted wildflower meadows. The Chens put in a vegetable garden. Bernard installed a mailbox shaped like a trout. It's hideous and wonderful and makes me smile every time I drive past. Holiday decorations went up and never came down. One house has Christmas lights running year-round now just because they can. It's become a running joke. Kids actually play outside. Sidewalk chalk art everywhere. You can hear laughter on summer evenings. The monthly potlucks started organically. First one was just 5 families in Bernard's backyard. Last month we had 43 people. Gladys won the pie contest for the 3rd year running. Her cherry pie is legendary now. I kept 8 properties as rentals, charged 15% below market rate, rent to families and students and veterans who need affordable housing. Took a financial loss on 2 properties when I sold them back to families who wanted to own again. $30,000 total. But money isn't why I did any of this. Sarah's Second Chances Scholarship launched with $47,000 in the fund. The recovered embezzlement money plus my personal contribution. First recipient was the Torrance's daughter, heading to college to become a teacher like her parents. $2,500 a year, renewable. Applications come from all over the county now. Kids who've lost parents, kids who've fought illness, kids who've overcome poverty. We've given out 8 scholarships so far. Pop lives permanently in one of my properties now. We have dinner twice a week. He's made friends with Bernard. They go fishing every Saturday, come back with stories that get more elaborate each time. I planted a garden where Sarah's ceramic turtle sits by my front door. Perennials, all her favorites. Black-eyed Susans, coneflowers, lavender. Installed a bench with a small plaque. Sarah's garden, sit, rest, grow. Neighbors actually use it. I'll come home and find strangers sitting there reading or just enjoying the afternoon. That's exactly what Sarah would have wanted. Marcus got hired full-time at Phyllis's law firm. He's considering law school now, says he wants to fight for people who can't fight for themselves. Bernard wrote a book about the whole experience. Self-published it on Amazon, HOA Hell, How We Fought Back. Sold 6,000 copies, mostly to people trapped in their own HOA nightmares. He donates profits to the scholarship fund. We get calls now. Other neighborhoods facing the same thing. Tyrannical boards, fraudulent fines, embezzlement. Marcus and I consult for free, walking people through the process. How to request audits, how to organize, how to fight back legally. Helped 4 communities so far. 3 successfully removed corrupt boards. 1 dissolved their HOA entirely. The local news did a follow-up story 6 months after the election. Filmed the neighborhood during one of our potlucks. Kids playing, people laughing, Gladys's bird feeder prominently displayed in her front yard. Property values actually went up 12% after the HOA dissolved. Turns out people will pay more to live somewhere they're actually free. We have an annual celebration now, Liberation Day we call it. Anniversary of the dissolution vote. Last one had over 80 people, live band, food trucks, kids bouncing in an inflatable castle, adults playing cornhole and drinking beer. I sat on the curb with Pop during the party, watching the chaos in the best possible way. "You missed the fight?" Pop asked. I thought about it. About spreadsheets and property deeds and late nights planning. "Nah," I said. "This is the win." A kid ran up, maybe 5 years old, one of the Torrance kids' friends, and handed me a piece of sidewalk chalk. "Draw with us." I looked at the ceramic turtle on my lawn, catching the late afternoon sun. Thought about Sarah, about fresh starts and second chances in communities worth fighting for. Drew a big yellow sun on the sidewalk. The kid added stick figures holding hands. My phone buzzed. Marcus. Got a call. HOA in Riverside doing the same thing Darlene did. Worse, actually. Military widow about to lose her house. I showed the text to Pop. "Here we go again," he said. "Someone's gotta," I replied. But that's a story for another time. For now, I'm just going to sit here on this curb, in this neighborhood that fought back and won, surrounded by people who've become family, and enjoy the sound of freedom. Because that's what this is. The sound of people living their lives without fear. The sound of kids playing without looking over their shoulders. The sound of a community that remembered how to breathe. Here's what I want you to do. If you've got an HOA nightmare story, drop it in the comments. We're collecting them, building a database. Some of your stories might become our next investigation. And if this fired you up, if you felt that rush of justice watching a bully finally face consequences, hit that subscribe button. We've got 47 more stories just like this one. People who fought the system and won, underdogs who became warriors, communities that said enough and meant it. Because here's the truth. Broken systems stay broken until someone decides to fix them. Sometimes that someone is you. Sometimes you just need a plan, some courage, and a ceramic turtle to remind you what you're fighting for. Welcome to the Grove, where lawns grow wild, kids draw on sidewalks, and Karens learn that tyranny always, always has an expiration date.
Thanks for hanging out with us on HOA Stories, where the HOA Karens meet their match. If this story had you cheering or cringing, go ahead and like the video, drop a comment with your reaction, and hit subscribe so you're ready for the next wild HOA tale.